Hi everybody, we're going into the second half of the fitness literacy presentation. This is where to go when you have the concept, you have some of the ideas down, how to get started. So to get started with this doesn't have to start as an entire class. It can start small. It's just one lesson or one unit in an existing PE class or in an existing fitness class. And so I always just say start with something you know well and use your contacts in the community. Always ask the people that you know that are coaching and teaching these different fitness activities. So simple ways that you could just start small is plan a field trip. And in a general PE class or a general PE fitness class is one of the days. Do a field trip to an off-campus facility and do a tour. Have a follow-up about it your next class. See if you can get reduced membership for the students who are enrolled in your class or from your school. It's a partnership. You can establish a lot of communities. Fitness centers, whether they're for-profit or non-profit, are used to doing this. Another way that you can start small is in one of these local gyms or fitness centers. See if they would be willing to help sponsor your fitness physical education class. And so maybe the terms of that sponsorship mean that once a month, one of their staff members comes in and guest teaches a class for you. Maybe it is some financial support. Maybe it is in terms of that membership discount or some sort of a special day, like one day each month, like a Saturday, where it's a community day and the kids from your school get to go. You can even use an off-campus facility. So I've taken a class before we had a YMCA next door to the school, and we just asked, like, hey, can our class come over and use your spin bikes during this time? You don't have a class scheduled. Would you be able to allow us to do that so these students can experience what a spinning class is actually like? Because no high school is going to buy a full set of spin bikes. So those are other opportunities. Or again, if you have very close proximity to some of these fitness centers or YMCAs, see if you can arrange some sort of shared use partnership. So maybe your class actually meets at this facility. Next, some pros and cons to this model. So pros, it's unconventional and it can spark a lot of interest with your students, and the motivation towards wanting to take this class can be a little higher because it's more real world focused. And it's a way that you can increase your elective enrollment. It's a way that you can diversify yourself as a teacher and make better connections with the community. And what I like is more than just being active. It's more than just coming to PE and sweating for a little bit or just doing some kickboxing for 40 minutes. The other thing that I really like about this model is that it absolutely does meet our SHAPE standards and our fitness education and PE expectations from SHAPE America. Some cons. So if we want to incorporate all these different activities like TRX and bar movement and adventure racing, the initial con most teachers will say is like, oh my gosh, how do we find all the equipment that we need? So a few strategic ways to get around that one is start slowly over time. You don't have to get a whole class set of equipment that you need to do, say, kickboxing or to do TRX all at one time. Just get one set and use it as a station. Of course, we always want you to lobby for funding to your funding sources within the school, like your PTA or PTO, put it on their wish list. Another thing that I've heard some schools do is of the PE budget that they do have, which I know is usually pretty small, the department agrees to have a certain percentage of their budget each year, semester, whenever they get it, to be dedicated just for updating or replenishing fitness equipment. So one high school that I worked with, of their PE budget, they always had 25% of it would be solely dedicated, no matter what, to updating some of the fitness equipment they had. They could still go beyond that if the department decided to spend additional money on it. I mentioned the gym donation and sponsorship before is also another great way. And with this donation, a lot of, especially for-profit gyms, they are cycling through equipment. They're replacing older things with newer things because their members pay a membership fee and they may expect nice new up-to-date equipment. See if that fitness or those fitness facilities are able to donate their old equipment that they're no longer using anymore and able to write it off on their taxes. Another con that we typically see is expertise of the teacher, because we looked at that long list before and all thought, wow, there's a lot of things in there I have never even done before. That's part of our job as educators, as professionals, is to stay up to date with stuff. And just because we have a pretty good handle on the sports that we play or on a couple fitness areas doesn't mean that we need to just stop there. So of course, you could see if you're able to, if you have interest in actually taking a fitness certification, like say it is a strength and conditioning coach, or say you want to get Zumba certified or TRX trainer certified. That's something you can check in with your school board and your district office because of the nature of our discipline to see if they would allow you taking a certification course, whether it's in person, like a weekend certification, or an online certification as professional development. You never know, it might. Some schools are willing to comp if their budget is healthy, if they're more affluent. I have seen it where the school, they really wanted to add yoga to help with the mental health of students, and so they actually paid for one of their PE teachers to do an initial yoga certification through a company called PHED. And then, of course, bringing guests is the easiest, definitely the easiest one to get around lack of expertise that you had. Another con is if you want to add or change an actual class, it can sometimes be a long process in schools. It just depends on the oversight that you have. And so that means, like, say you're wanting to create a new course, a new elective, it could be up to a year-long process to go through your school board and go through your principal or curriculum directors. So if you are in a situation where proposing a new course is a process like that, propose it sooner rather than later and pilot test it out in small units in a class that you already have. See if you can get other teachers that are in your district. Say you have there's 3 high schools in your district. See if you can get any other teachers at the other buildings on board and make it more of a district-wide rollout instead of just you as the only one doing it. Promote it to students. See if you can get student testimonials to say, hey, we would love to have a class like this. Or if you pilot test some of the labs or some of the fitness activities as in units that you already have, get feedback from those students and how they like it. Another thing you can do sometimes is if a lot of schools will have these old existing classes on the books, but they're not actually offered. When I say on the books, that just means on their list of courses that have ever been taught in the department. You might be able to find a loophole and just modify an existing class that's already on there, change the name, change the outcomes, and rerun it as a new one. Oops. Now we'll go through again. Next, so we're coming into our instructional framework for fitness education and PE document. And so this is where we're looking at the expectations that we have from there. And this is where we can see how will this model actually meet our national standards and then this framework. So technique, our first main area. The classes that we're actually going to be doing on the activity days are going to be more of a group or small group fitness type of classes, and we are going to be focusing on technique. The active days are typical active days, where they're going to be taught progressions, regressions, and how to do everything. The knowledge emphasis, this is where our labs come through. Those are our conceptual lessons. With physical activity, of course, they're doing fitness and physical activity, especially on our active days. Even the planning part of it that's listed in physical activity, that's one of our labs. Where it says health-related fitness, where it talks about goal setting, monitoring, achieving goals. This is where a lot of our technology-based labs, where we're talking about tracking our activity and tracking our nutrition, can come into play. For our responsible personal and social behavior, this is where we're looking into some of our online labs. We're talking about social networking, looking into what's culturally diverse fitness. And so thinking about people from different cultures, different racial backgrounds, even different age groups potentially. What are they tend to be geared towards? Are different fitness businesses and fitness centers, are they catering to the needs of a diverse variety of people? And so doing some audits and some critical views of this. And then stress management, that's where there's definite options where we can look at certain types of classes that tend to favor stress management as one of the outcomes. For our values and advocates, any of those 4 topics could be a learning module or a lab. And so how do we advocate for a healthier lifestyle, seeing if they can see messages in society that actually promote physical activity versus either demonize it or put a negative spin on it. I love the idea of fitness careers. That's something we absolutely do not teach in high school, and we absolutely should, especially if we have students who are choosing to take this class as an elective. They probably have some sort of interest in this, and definitely we know that students are not aware that there's more than just athletic trainer or sports medicine doctor if they want to stay in the sport or movement field. And then occupational fitness needs is another lab concept that we could have, because a lot of jobs may have a minimum work requirement or minimum capability for work requirements. I especially like to think of police, fire, law enforcement, any of those types of jobs have a very physical need. They have minimums that you have to meet to be able to do that work. Military is another example. And so looking at those careers and from that point of view and seeing what level of fitness is necessary. Nutrition, of course, that crosses over for sure into health education, but we can absolutely hit on this, and it's a great way to integrate with physical education as well. And so looking at different types of diets, the trendy ones, what they're saying, the claims that they're making, bringing in a local nutritionist, a dietitian, different food and nutrition specialists, and seeing how do they advise their clients. What's the typical process that a nutritionist takes a new client through so they know what to expect if they're in that position, to be able to hire one themselves, doing grocery shopping trips with your class, getting a budget and having to plan a day or a week or 2 days of food on that budget, for example. And then the last focus that our instructional framework has is consumerism. And as we've seen before with some of the labs, a lot of it is focused on decision making and differentiating between fact and fiction. So really, really good way to incorporate this expectation of our fitness framework into the fitness literacy class that we have. And this is our summary of state standard priorities. This is at the back of the fitness framework document, where you see 5 is the highest level priority, 0 is the lowest level. And so for high school, we see that maintaining activity is our highest level priority. And with us doing our active days, we are giving them physical activity opportunities. The knowledge is there. That's number 2 in the priority list. That's what we also are focusing on. And then number 3 on the list is pretty much everything that the labs also focus on. So how to participate, impact of technology, finding peers, finding small groups, the culture of fitness, local fitness options, also very high up on our priority list. Here's a few examples from some of the actual benchmarks in the fitness framework document and how and which ones would directly be applied in this type of model. So evaluating our environment, our policies, government, what's available on actually doing health promotion and disease prevention. So looking at maybe what does our local space, some of our local laws, or some of the local messages that our medical institutions are putting out, are those actually good health and fitness practices? The next one at the bottom is looking at social media, social networking, and how that influences our fitness positively. So looking at influencers online, using technology, nutrition plans. So that's when we talk about tracking food or tracking macronutrients, calories. That's something, teaching them how to do it directly in line, again, with some objectives. You see social media to look for strategies and looking for tips. And then using physical activity and fitness to overcome fear or stress. That's in several labs in itself of the benefits of movement from a chemical standpoint in our bodies, and finding things that they enjoy and why physical activity is a low invasive area of coping with stress as opposed to immediately going to a medication or going to some other less healthy method of coping. Fact and fiction, analyzing diet plans, looking at what is actually feasible to do, especially related to weight control, looking at bogus information versus accurate information so that people can make decisions. And then even for looking up an event, so looking for a local 5K or a fitness event, that could be a culminating event. Say the local community has a run or a race. Maybe your class volunteers at it, or maybe they actually participate in it, and part of